growing up, I worked at a fruit shop, and we had an Islamic charity box where next to the counter where I served people, and it happened so much. Like these people would come, they'd have 5 cents, and then they'd want to pop it into the charity box. As soon as they read that it's an Islamic charity, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, God knows who that's going to. It's probably a terrorist organization," and they wouldn't donate 5 cents. And it just like, I'd sit there and see that, and I'm like, I try to be understanding and being like, okay, these people grew up being manipulated to think like this, but it would hurt. They don't realize that they were being served by a Muslim as well. So it's just, yeah, you see like these small things happen throughout your life growing up, and it just really, really hurts, and you really start to draw back from interacting with that culture. My name is Lejane, and I don't label myself as a Muslim. If someone were to ask me, I would say my family background is Muslim. I never really wore a scarf as often. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I only lived there for the first 2 years of my life. I often tell people I do remember a lot of that time of my life, and no one ever believes me. We'd always eat together and cook together, and it was very, very family oriented. I remember sitting in my like baby chair and being fed food, and these are things that you don't normally remember at 2 years old, but I remember all of them. It was the happiest time I've ever had in my life, and I remember every detail, whether anyone believes me or not. So, but yeah, it's moving to Australia was a massive trauma for me. I could never say that I'm Australian. The one time I did try saying I'm Australian, no, like they didn't believe me. They would say, "Where are you really from? You look different." So I opted to saying that I'm Palestinian. When we did come to Australia, my dad always tried to implement that family culture in our household. So we'd have breakfast together, have lunch together, have dinner together. And it got to a point where even on weekends, like I didn't want to wake up early and have breakfast with the family, and we'd always end up arguing because of it, but it's really nice that it was maintained throughout. Living in a Western country, a lot of people would go out late at night and drink. It was always a very a very obvious distinction between the Western and Australian culture and then the Muslim Arab culture, and I had to live both of them. It's a culture in the Middle East, so when people go to the mosque and pray, they go because it's just a part of their lives. It's not because they're forced or because they've been threatened that they're going to go to hell. Here you grow up with ideas that you have to go to the mosque and you have to dress like this and you have to do this. We have to differentiate ourselves from the Western society. We have to do this, otherwise we'll get punished by God. So it was always, the religion was always very forceful, and because of that I questioned it growing up. I found it really hard to be a part of that minority group, and I really tried to separate myself from the Muslims in Australia and become my own version of what Islam is. One guy once asked me, I was hopping onto the bus, and he was like, "Oh, where are you from?" I was like, "I'm Palestinian, but I grew up in Australia." And he said, "Well, what are you doing? What are you doing in Australia? Why don't you just go back home?" I don't think they have the capacity to change their mindset, only because they grew up in a privileged society with different issues, different ideas, different ways of life. I had to go into therapy for a couple of months to kind of figure out what I wanted to do in life and how to be able to not let people's ideas and opinions and racism towards who I am affect me anymore, because if I did, it'll just be a whole mental battle. I'll just go into a crisis. When I talk to my family, I don't really talk about the fact that I don't label myself as a Muslim, and I really try to show myself as a full, traditional, moderate Muslim to them. I've realised that it's just like, whether I try to please the Western side or the Muslim side, it's just leaving me in a very unhappy state. And for me, at the end of the day, it's my own self-satisfaction that brings me the only happiness. People are going to have judgments no matter how you see yourself or how you portray yourself. For me, I had to separate myself from all these judgments and realize that I needed to be my own person, my own Muslim, Arab, Palestinian person, and be proud of that. This is the person I want to be. This is how I want to label myself as. And I don't care what people say, but this is who I am.